"Hey lady, your face, it's ruining my meal." The diner went still. Plates clinked. Coffee stopped pouring. The waitress didn't flinch, but the water in her hands spilled across her apron. Her scar, lit harshly by the diner lights, was impossible to ignore. What would you do if you witnessed this cruelty? Stay with us at Graceful Valor Stories to find out. No one said a word until a teenage boy, quiet, unnoticed in the corner, stood up, and with a steady voice, he said 6 words that changed everything. If you've ever seen cruelty like this, you won't believe what happens next. Welcome to Graceful Valor Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. Ben Travers didn't rattle easily. He'd managed noisy restaurants in Denver for almost a decade, navigating shouting kitchens, long ticket lines, and angry customers complaining about undercooked fries. But nothing prepared him for what he saw that Sunday morning in a small Montana town called Maple Ridge. Maple Ridge Grill was nothing fancy. A roadside diner with vinyl booths, thick ceramic mugs, and venison pie that regulars swore could cure anything. Ben had only been here 3 weeks. He took over as manager after the last guy retired. It was supposed to be a step back, something simple, temporary. That morning started like most. He checked the coolers, sorted invoices, smelled yesterday's grease still lingering in the fryer. The after-church crowd came in, talking weather and football. It was routine, familiar, until he noticed her. She moved through the room like clockwork. 3 plates balanced in one hand, a coffee pot in the other, uniform neat, posture steady. But her eyes, they never lingered on anyone too long. Her name was Cali Rhodess. She'd been here longer than Ben. Quiet, on time, efficient. But that morning, under the bright white of the overhead lights, Ben saw something no one had mentioned. The scars. One stretched from her left temple down her cheek. Another curved along her neck, disappearing into her collar. Cali didn't hide them. But she didn't acknowledge them either. She just did her job with a calm, practiced rhythm. And most people didn't look at her directly, or if they did, it was quick. Ben wiped the counter, trying not to stare. Then he heard it. A man at table 6, too loud for comfort. God, look at her face. The man snorted. I came in for breakfast, not a horror show. Laughter erupted from his buddies. Forks clinked against plates. Cali didn't flinch. She kept pouring coffee like she hadn't heard a thing. But Ben saw it. The way her fingers tightened around the pot, the way her shoulders braced. She heard. Everyone heard, but no one said a word. Ben started to move, not sure what he'd even say, when he noticed someone else watching. A teenage boy, maybe 16, sitting in a corner booth with his mom. He wasn't laughing, wasn't avoiding her either. He was watching Cali, not with pity, with something else, respect. Ben couldn't explain it then, didn't know the story, didn't know why the boy looked at her like that, but he would, very soon. Ben hadn't expected it to happen again, not so soon. But 20 minutes later, it did. Cali walked past a table, setting down a plate of bacon and eggs. The woman in pearls gave her a quick look, then leaned toward her husband. She didn't whisper quietly enough. Why would they let someone like that serve food? Ben heard it. So did Cali, but she didn't blink. She topped off their coffee, gave a soft nod, then walked away. But Ben saw it this time. The coffee pot trembled slightly in her hand. Her silence, it wasn't peace, it was armor, and it was cracking. He made his way toward the kitchen. Frank, the cook, looked up. Big guy, I've been there for years, he saw Ben's face and said quietly, "Don't get involved, boss." She's dealt with that kind of thing since day one. No one steps in. Frank shrugged. Most folks are decent, but some, they just can't handle different. Ben's jaw tightened. It wasn't just what people said, it was the way they didn't say anything, that quiet complicity, like cruelty was just routine. Later that morning, it happened again. A little girl, maybe 5, pointed at Cali as she wiped down a table. "Mommy, what's wrong with that lady's face?" The mother grabbed her daughter's hand and pulled her close. She gave Cali a look that made Ben's stomach twist. "Don't stare," she snapped, "it's rude." The little girl didn't understand. "But she's the one with the scars," she whispered back. Ben caught it all. Cali just smiled, a soft, practiced smile, like she'd been doing this for years. A few minutes later, Ben found her at the sink in the back room. She was splashing cold water on her face, hands shaking slightly. He paused in the doorway. "You okay?" She didn't answer right away. She dried her face with a napkin, then looked at him in the mirror. "It's just a face," she said softly. "But people treat it like a warning sign." Ben didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. Cali glanced down. "You don't need to protect me, Mr. Travers. I'm used to being invisible." When they stepped back into the diner, something caught Ben's eye. That boy in the corner booth, he was still watching Cali. Not her scars, not her uniform, her eyes. He wasn't avoiding her, he wasn't sorry for her, he was paying attention. Ben didn't know why, not yet. But the way that boy looked at her made Ben believe that maybe not everyone was pretending. By 11:15, the diner was packed. Cali moved like she always did, quiet, focused, efficient. But something was different. Ben saw it in the way customers started asking for Melissa instead. And Melissa didn't argue. "I'll take table 4, she mumbled. "They, asked for me." She didn't meet Cali's eyes. And Cali, she didn't flinch, didn't protest. She just nodded, like she expected it. But even in her own section, the looks were sharper, the whispers louder. Then came table 5. A man in a golf shirt leaned back in his chair as Cali approached. He looked her up and down. "Isn't there someone normal who can bring our food?" Cali didn't blink, she didn't argue. "I'm sorry for the inconvenience, sir. I'll find someone else." She turned quickly. Ben counted the steps 1, 2, 3, 7 straight into the kitchen. He followed. "You don't have to put up with that," he said. "It's not the first time," she replied. "It won't be the last." Her voice didn't shake, but her hands did. The final blow came just after noon. 4 men walked in loud, laughing, too confident, khaki pants, collared shirts, sunglasses indoors. They sat at table 9, Cali's section. Ben watched her shoulders stiffen. Still, she approached with a notepad. "Welcome to Maple Ridge Grill. What can I get for you today?" One man grinned. "Hey, Scarface, got any pancake specials?" His friends burst out laughing. Another chimed in. "What happened to your face? Bar fight? Chemical spill?" Ben stood up, he was ready to intervene, but Cali held up a hand, not to stop the customer, to stop Ben. She looked the men in the eye. "I was injured in Afghanistan. Now, what can I get for you?" They didn't back down. "Afghanistan?" One of them snorted. "What were you doing there, huh? Serving coffee to the real soldiers?" Ben took a step, but before he could say anything, a glass crashed to the floor. One of them had knocked it over on purpose. "Oops, look what you made me do with your shaking. Clean it up." Cali crouched down, hands trembling, picking up shards of glass while the whole diner stared. And then, from behind the counter, Dory stepped out, arms crossed. "Emma, clock out." Cali looked up. "I haven't finished my shift." "You're making people uncomfortable," Dory said flatly. "It's bad for business." Ben's stomach turned. Cali stood slowly, a thin line of blood on her palm. "You're firing me because of how I look?" Dory didn't answer that. "I'm letting you go because of the complaints." No one in the diner said a word. Even Melissa looked away. Ben clenched his fists. And then it happened. The teenage boy in the corner booth, the one who had been watching all morning, stood up. Silence, thick, total, unmistakable. Ben turned his head slowly. The teenage boy, the quiet one in the corner booth, was standing thin, nervous, maybe 16, but his voice didn't shake. He looked at Cali, then turned to the room. She saved my father's life twice. 6 words, and everything stopped. Cali froze. Dory did too. Even the men at table 9 silent. The boy reached into his wallet, pulled out a worn, folded photograph. He held it up high. This is my dad, Captain Joel Merritt, 10th Mountain Division, 2 Purple Hearts. He told me about a medic, a woman, said she didn't just save him, said she saved others too. The boy took a breath, his voice steadied. First time, their convoy hit an IED. Dad's vehicle flipped, he was trapped, his leg crushed, gas leaking everywhere. Enemy fire started from the ridge. Everyone dove for cover, except her. She ran into the fire, alone. Then felt the room shift, no more chewing, no more forks, only breath. She pulled my dad out, dragged him clear as the wreck started to burn, used her body to shield him from the second blast, then carried him back on her shoulders all the way to the field hospital while bleeding herself. They say she passed out 2 minutes after handing him over, but before she did, she apologized for being slow. Ben blinked hard. Cali didn't move, but her hands had curled into tight fists. Second time, 5 months later, a night raid ambush. My dad took a bullet to the chest. His vest stopped it from killing him, but not from breaking him. They called for a medevac, no signal, comms were jammed, but she didn't wait. Cali ran through open terrain, pitch black, no backup, no orders, just her and a medbag. She stitched a collapsed lung by headlamp, used a pen casing to improvise a chest tube, then dragged him out, crawling through rocks and mud and bullets. She didn't stop, not until he was safe. The boy turned back to Cali. I never knew her name, not until today, but I've seen her eyes before, in the photo that sits on our mantle every single day. He turned toward Dory. You didn't ask who she was, you just saw her scars. He looked around the room. But those scars, they're medals, you just don't know how to read them. An older man near the back stood up. I served in Vietnam, he said, 48 years ago. I sat here, watched, and said nothing. Ma'am, he saluted her, I'm sorry for my silence. Cali's eyes shimmered. A woman near the counter whispered, forgive us. Even the men at table 9, their heads were down, their shoulders slumped. Ben stood in place, hands at his sides, throat thick. The boy took one last step, stood beside Cali, offered her the photograph. My dad says he owes his life to you twice. I owe you my father. You're the bravest person I've ever seen. Cali took the photo, her hands trembled, her face still, but her heart, you could feel it break open and start to heal. Then one clap, another, soon the whole diner was standing, not for pancakes, not for coffee, but for Sergeant Cali Rhodess, the combat medic, the silent hero, and the woman they finally saw. The applause didn't stop right away, it built slowly, like something that had been waiting to be released. Cali stood still, eyes wide, hands shaking, not from fear, but from something else, relief. She'd been holding her breath for years, now she could finally exhale. Dory stepped forward, her face pale, her mouth tight. In her hands, a folded apron. She held it out. I didn't ask, she said, that was my mistake, I'm sorry. Cali looked at the apron, then at the people around her, all the eyes that once avoided hers, now looking with respect, with guilt, with something close to love. She didn't take it. Thank you, she said softly, but I don't need it anymore. By evening, the story was everywhere. A local journalist had posted about it online, a title, The Hero Behind the Scars. It spread like wildfire. 2 days later, Cali got a call. It wasn't a sympathy call, it was an offer from the VA regional office. We need people like you, the voice said, people who understand what it means to come home changed. They offered her a position, community outreach coordinator. She wouldn't just survive anymore, she'd lead, she'd help others find their way back. On her last day at Maple Ridge Grill, the diner was full, but not for brunch. People came to say goodbye. Some hugged her, some handed her letters, some just stood near her, quietly, ashamed, grateful, changed. Someone gave her a small wooden plaque, scars don't shame us, they prove we came back. Josh Merritt stood by the door, next to his parents. His father, Captain Joel Merritt, wore his full dress uniform, chest out, eyes clear. He stepped forward, saluted. "Sergeant Rhodess," he said, voice proud, reporting home. Cali smiled, they hugged like family. 6 months later, Cali stood on stage at Maple Ridge High School. It was Veterans Day. She wore a navy blazer, a flag pin on her lapel, her scars still there, still visible. But now, people looked at them with understanding, with awe, with respect. Josh, now a junior, introduced her. "Heroes don't always wear medals," he said. "Sometimes they wear aprons, sometimes they carry scars that carry more weight than any uniform. This is Sergeant Cali Rhodess, and she taught me what courage looks like." Cali stepped to the microphone, the room went still. "You might forget my name," she said, "you might forget my story, but don't forget this, scars don't make us broken, they mean we survived." She paused. "And sometimes, we survive so someone else can live." Back at the diner, a new plaque was placed on the wall, right by the register. It read, "Courage serves daily, in honor of Cali Rhodess." Below it, a photo of Cali in uniform, smiling, holding a coffee pot, her scars visible, her head held high. Because not all battles are won on the field, and not all heroes are seen at first glance. But when truth rises, when courage is finally honored, the whole world stands. In our darkest moments, kindness still finds a way, often in the quietest places. Not everyone who helps wants recognition, some just need to know that today, someone isn't going hungry. And sometimes, that alone is enough to change a life. You may forget the story, but if no one retells it, history stays silent forever. Subscribe to Graceful Valor Stories, where justice is honored, kindness is remembered, and no act of quiet heroism is ever lost.